Some days you'll have a good day, and the next day will be pretty slow because their metabolism slows down. They're not burning through the energy. They're not jumping. They're not active. Right now they're active. Today we probably saw 40 jumpers. So they're there. They're moving around. They're burning through whatever they're eating on. All right. So let's get back to how we're going to anchor. So we're going to mark some fish. We're going to anchor. I like to put my boat right in the middle. So I want to make sure I have some fish in front of me. I want to make sure I have some fish in back of me where we're going to cast. Make sure I have some fish off to the sides, because in my mind says I think fish can hear other fish feeding, right? So a lot of times we're getting a lot of striper bites. That's fine. I think the sturgeon will come in along with those two, and they'll see what's going on or hear what's going on. So when we anchor up the boat, you're going to put your anchor there. We're going to sit down here. When you start casting your lines, what I recommend doing is kind of spread the lines out. So if you're fishing 4 rods, I wouldn't cast everything right off the back of the boat. I see guys do it. I would spread them out a little bit. Cast one out the side, one straight back, another one straight back, another one off the side. It opens up your area you're covering. As opposed to this layer of chairs here, if you put 4 lines there, your scent trail is just there. So like on my boat with fishing 8-10 rods, I'm fan casting all over. So I'll have rods pretty much with heavy weights, my bow rods with 22 ounce weights going straight off the side, straight out. So my spread has just got that much bigger, and then we'll kind of narrow it back here behind the boat before we concentrate. The reason why these are productive, they're the first baits the fish is going to come to. So when the fish is coming downstream, like we talked about, the anchor's here. Very rarely, I mean they do, but what happens is the anchor is going to flare the fish to one side or the other. So when the fish are actively feeding a contour, they're feeding down. And the reason why the first rods out, or the first rods closest, them coming down are more productive, is because that's just where they're coming down to it. But the front rods, if fish is flared off by the anchor, that's the first bait that they're going to get to when you get them. So my boat, my bow rods, if they're actively feeding, I can tell you how the day's going because my bow rods are getting lit up. If they're not, it's a little slower day. We're still getting bites, but if they're really biting hard, the rods that are getting flared by the anchor rope, the first fish, first rods that the baits, fish are getting to, that's going to be your, I know they're feeding well. Any questions about anchoring up?
Oh, yeah.
No? All right.
What's your general choice in the depth of the water?
Depth of water is going to vary wherever the fish are. So we're going to scan certain areas. So it's going to be based on the current and the tide. So like today, at the start of the incoming tide, it was a bigger tide. I opted to fish less than 30 foot of water, 25. Then at the top of the tide, when I knew it was peaking out, I went into a hole that was 75 foot of water, and I knew it was time to fish that, because I just know from past experience that if I were there any sooner, that the current would be moving too hard and we're not going to be fishing. So I get there, I looked at my tide book, okay, I got to leave at this time, it'll give me an hour and a half of fishing in the zone, and it worked out for us today. Question? You guys good? So we've also do a lot of fishing shallow. I haven't fished shallow yet. I'm thinking about trying it. Maybe tomorrow. Never know. Maybe this weekend. I think it's going to be a beautiful weekend out on the water. I think it's going to be a lot of boats. So my objective this weekend is to find a new spot away from the boats that no one's really been fishing lately. And it might be shallow water. We have the tides for it. Shallow water, I'm calling less than 10 foot of water, 2-3 foot of water, 4 foot of water. Getting there. Yeah, it's nothing like catching a 5 foot fish in 4 foot of water. They have nowhere to go but that way, which is awesome. And I've been there so many times, and you see the bite, you hook it, and the fish is splashing like a tarpon across the water, like going. And it's the best thing. I mean, I'm gonna look at that this weekend, I think. But as for depth of water, as of lately, I'd say 25 to 40 has been the best. But we did catch fish at 70 foot today, 75 foot. So when you guys decide where you're going to go and put what bait you're going to use, you're going to cast out. And when you cast out, you're going to take your setup. So your weight is going to go on this red slider. That's sliding here. Just your typical, bait setup for our style fishing, striper, sturgeon. There is a right and a wrong way to put on the slider. This is the right way. The low side goes to your leader. The high side doesn't go up top. Okay? The reason why it doesn't, you're gonna be reeling up, it's gonna be wrapped up a lot. It's just natural for it to lay like that. Okay. Now these also come with a tee, a plastic tee here. Have you ever seen that? You know what that's for? So, what's that? Or casting your bait out. So if you're fishing off the shore, you take your hook, you hang it off that tee, and then so you don't hook the tree behind you. So it's kind of like this, right? Then in midair it comes off. Good. That's what it's for. We break it off. So it's one less thing to get caught up on. So, but I didn't know what that was for the longest time. And some guy's been fishing a long time. He's like, yeah, that's what it's for. I was like, it makes total sense. So, but we don't need it in this case. We take it off, break it off. I change out the snaps on them. A lot of them are going to come with like a brass snap. Weight's expensive now. Lead is expensive. Use a dual lock snap. Put it on that way. It's holding on to your weight instead of just clipped on. This is actually locked in. All right. So here's your setup. You're going to lob out. Lob out. Let's see if I can try that again. I didn't cast enough today. And then what you're going to do when your bait hits the water, what you want to do when you cast is you want to tighten up real quick. All right. So what I do, don't turn. You want the line to continue to go out. So in order to tighten up, I kind of just put my thumb and everything on the line. I stop it because I want my leader to go up against the slider. And then once that it's accomplished, you can feel it kind of connect. And just let it all the way down to the weight hits the bottom. You're going to feel a thump, and then you engage the reel. And what you want to do, what I do, I pull tight. So I'll take my rod, and I'll just pull tight real quick. It's in gear, and that way it makes sure everything lays straight. Right? And then you're going to put it in your rod holder or your balance beam. No one's really going to use balance beams anymore. That's how I grew up fishing. It was a rough day in my life to get away from it. The reason why we get away from it now, and we got away from it, is because when you're balance beam fishing, I mean it works, but what's going to happen? You got a lot of wind, your boat's moving, which it's moving, right? The advantage to that though is that when you do get a bite, you can just set right off the balancer, right? And I've caught tons of fish on the balance beam. But here in the last 8 to 10 years, I've changed it up. We're all using rod holders, and the reason why we're able to put all our rods together, not together, but in the same line. Okay, so you're able to keep an eye on everything. So when the boat's moving, instead of having a rod down here, a rod up here, because you're balance beam fishing, in the rod holder, everything's got a fixed position. So you have 6 rods on your back of the boat moving together. And all of a sudden, you see that bite. Okay? And a lot of times, when your boat's moving, is at the beginning and end of the current, right? When they're going to be biting. And so you don't want to be babysitting a rod. You want to look, oh, there's a bite. That's what you want to be seeing. So have everything together. If you look at everyone's setup in the industry, they're all relatively the same. Everything's level. You're not looking around. You have all the rods right in your front door for that. All right? So the drag set. So the bites on the sturgeon are going to vary. I don't think there's such thing as a consistent sturgeon bite. It's a type of bite. Right? There is the classic tug sturgeon pump, right? In a perfect world, there is that. There is that turns into that, right? So a lot of times people think they're getting a striper bite. Well, they'll start out like a striper bite. The reason why, because the sturgeon's mouth isn't always hanging out, because they have a big old suction tube, right? And where you get the sturgeon pump, that is where it drops his mouth down. Okay. Now, when you get the initial bite, a lot of times, they'll start with a tap, and that's because his mouth is still sucked in, and their lips do this. It's not in their mouth. They're kind of tasting it, right? You might want to eat it. So they'll go, boom, tap. Then they'll, then to go to the rod, and a lot of times they'll end up in a tug. That's when you're going to want to either, if you want to set the hook or reel down, is on the tug. Okay, so what I do, I tell, the guy gets a bite. I was like, I'll see initial tap sometimes. then get to your rod, whatever's watch number 6 or number 8, and then get ready. Then let them get aggressive with it. Let that rod bend down a little bit. And I usually wait 3 or 4 good pulls. Let that thing pull down on it, and that means he's got it, and we're going to start reeling right away. So what you're going to do, you see the bites in the rod holder, and it's tapping. I'm going to tell you to reel. And all you're going to do is just start reeling like this, fast you can in the rod holder. It seems awkward right now, but it works super good. All you're going to do is reel, and you're not going to be reeling. You're going to notice that the rod's still in the rod holder. You're going to be reeling, and all you're doing is spinning on the drag. That's because the fish is hooked, right? The rod's bowed up. He's on. Like I said, these hooks are pretty sharp. You don't need to do much to them to get it into that fish's mouth. And you're just going to be reeling, and at that point, just pull it out. If you want to give it a little hook set, you can. I usually just tell the person to start reeling and just pull on it hard. The harder you pull, the harder they're going to pull back. If he's barely hooked, it ain't meant to be. You're going to pull the hook. If he's hooked in, he ain't coming off. All right? That's what you want to do. And what you want is going to keep a nice bend in the rod. So when you're fighting your fish, I don't want to see this, okay? I don't want to have you point the rod at the fish. It's tough. But then again, we don't want a high stick either. We don't want to have the rod out here. You want to keep it just a nice, right around your eye level is perfect, okay? If you have your rod up high and you're fighting a big fish that's pretty much controlling you when you're at the boat, what's going to happen to the rod? It's going to overextend, right? A rod's not made to go backwards. It's made to bend down. So if you're high sticking, we call it, and I'll tell people all the time, don't high stick. I have to explain what high sticking is, and that's keeping your rod up high. Keep it level at your eyes, and if the fish goes underneath the boat, bow your rod to it, hold on to it nice. Or a lot of times, a lot of the fish we're hooking as of late, they're jumping out of the water, and a lot of times I'll see the fish jump before the people do, right? Or I can tell it's going to jump. And I'm watching the line, the guy's fighting the fish, and the fish is going to go out because we're using a firm drag, and you'll watch the line just kind of rise, right? And if you see that, just start reeling like a madman. Who cares? Just reel, and that fish is pulling up. As you start pulling on, you're going to get an awesome jump out of that fish. It's pretty sweet. At that point, don't stop reeling. And what I like to do, I continue winding, and I pull back on the rod, right? Some other types of fish, you want to bow to them. We have no barbs, and we have a big weight here, right? We have a 10-ounce weight, 12-ounce weight. So I've seen a lot of it. We had a guy the other day with like a 50-something incher. I hooked it up for him. He's fighting. I was like, "It's gonna jump, reel." He just sat there, and his fish just said bye. And but you got to keep the rod bent and just reel like a madman. All right. And then when you get your fish close, you're gonna want to find a way to land it. Most of the nets they have nowadays are going to be able to land the sturgeon. Allen's big nets are over there in the corner. They'll land a sturgeon. If it doesn't fit in one of the bigger nets, it's too big probably. And another thing, we didn't talk too much about this, but it's okay to practice catch and release on the sturgeon. If we're on a charter, group charter the boat, we're not keeping any more than 2 fish. Do we catch more days? A lot of days, 4 or 5 keepers, yes. But we're not keeping any more than 2. I've learned to have enough respect for that fish. And, at the beginning of my career, there was always a fish growing up. If you caught one, it was a good day. Now we're dialing in, we're catching a lot. And so you could easily wipe out this fishery. And how greedy do we need to get is to kill every single fish? What are you going to do with all that meat? So what we do on the boat, I offer $50 off for any keeper released. And that's just to give back to the fish mainly, because I want to catch it again, right? But I'm not opposed to keeping fish. I love it. Sturgeon's my best, but I'm not going to go out there and have a straight murder session anymore on those things. I just feel bad for those fish. And a lot of guys are like that. There's boats out there now that strictly catch and release. There's guys out there, releasing some, keeping some, releasing some, and there's guys that are harvesting a lot. It's fine. But as long as, if you get it to the point where you're able to hook a lot of fish, you're allowed 3 sturgeon a year. If you kill 3 sturgeon, you're free. You're going to be sturgeoned out by the end of the year. You know what I mean? Or what a lot of guys do, they fish for the perfect keeper. Perfect keeper. A lot of guys think it's the upper slot size, which is going to be 58, 59-inch fish. Like a perfect keeper for me is like a 50-incher. It hasn't been in the system as long as a 60-incher, and it's but little 40-incher is pretty dang tasty too. And sturgeon's probably one of my favorite eating fish. But, you know, it's all right to get back to the fishery too. Any other questions? No? Yeah.
Talk about how to release.
How to release them, perfect. So there's ways you could do it. They're a hardy fish. But then again, a fish this big, you know, isn't made to come out of the water. You know, I mean, think about it. They're in the water, they're swimming around. There's no gravity taking, you know, there's floating. Now, when you pull a big fish out of the water, you're physically, like, looking at it, you don't think you're doing any damage, but that fish laying on the deck, you grabbing that thing, it's hurting the fish some way, you know. The best way to do it is to do it quick, and you could use a landing net if you want. A lot of times when these fish come up next to the boat and they're hooked. So you could, you know, if you have a boat that's low enough, you have a pair of gloves on if you want. You could grab their tail, grab the leader, and just pull the fish in the boat and, you know, deal with it and then get them back, get a picture. Release them head first. Any oversized fish we don't pull out of the water, even if it's measurable, I mean, unless it's right on the button and the guy wants to absolutely keep it. If it's right there, we just pull the hook right there. And how you want to release those is you want to pull it next to the boat, pull the hook out, and then you want to pull the fish, turn the fish upright. Because a sturgeon, they'll almost become like a, what do you call that? Yeah, like a shark. They go upside down, they'll just sit there, right? They'll be just sitting there in the current. You can do anything with that fish at that point, but you have to turn them upside down. If not, they'll kind of float away. You want them to swim off. So you turn the fish upside down, give them a little shove, they'll swim right off. It's actually a really cool feeling watching catch a big old fish and throwing them back. But then again, I like cleaning them and eating them. So, but we got to just be selective on that, because you know our numbers on the sturgeon they're not real high. You know, and you could gradually, on a good year, there's a lot of fish harvested. You can see it. You know, right now we're missing a whole year class of fish. I'd say we're missing fish in the 50 to 60 inch range that we put a hurting on them when they were a little younger. You know, but now we're seeing a lot of 40 inch fish. You know, 44s, 46, they're around. But is the change of the slot limit and the bag limit helping things? Yeah, heck yeah, it is. You know, there's more bigger fish to be caught, which is awesome. But other than that, you guys have any other questions?
I know you fish a lot of the waters out there, but if you're here, Verona, Discovery, all the way down through here, what are you looking for? Are you just fishing the channel?
Holes. I know a lot of guys fish the holes, the grab with the sandbars. Like, that's why Verona's so good. There's sandbars close by. A lot of times they're traveling up, and that's going to fish February, March, April typically. Get some rain, they're going to come up to spawn. So the more rain, the more fish are going to come up. The less rain, the less spawning.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, channel. You're just looking for them at that point. You're not worried about the channel or anything.
No, you're just going to look for them on your graph and set up. There's a lot of holes. They fish in a lot of holes here. Like Merritt's Landing down here. I mean, there's nothing special there, but there is deep water close by and there's shallow water. You know, I would say, you know, the river fishing is very, very unique. I haven't caught too many in the river. The ones I've caught in the river were fishing for striper. I should probably figure it out. That way I'll hone in my skills. But if you're going to catch a fish of a lifetime, it's going to be here, for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's big ones up here. They're coming up here for one thing, is to lay babies. But yeah, you're going to fish the holes, and you know, there's areas where guys are going to fish for them at. You know, Knight's Landing, and that's because there's places they're going to hang up and they're going to travel. Any other questions?
Salt, the salinity. Do you actually measure the salinity?
You could see the salinity on your graph.
Oh.
So there's a line, and you can see the salt water at the bottom, and it's almost like a thermocline in a way, but the salt water is more dense, right? So fresh water is going to be on top, salt water is going to be down here. And so when you have bigger tides, it's going to draw more fresh water out of the rivers, right? But then again, if you have big incoming tides coming from the bay and ocean, it's going to pull more salt water up. And then you're going to run into a situation where you're going to have some big tides, you're going to be followed by some small tides, and there's going to be just a pocket of, you know, of stale water, or that water that the fish don't like. And that's what happened, you know, where we were catching them a few days ago, they're gone. I already know that because I've been metering it the last 2 days, but the water just doesn't look right. You know, they're moved up into the system a little bit, and because they're following that transition.
So, is there a difference between like, cause I know a lot of guys like to fish in like really tight sloughs and stuff for sturgeon and so
Like
like.
Montezuma, Sassoon, and stuff like that. Dad's gonna fish a little bit more after the first of the year. I noticed that when the water gets colder is when they start favoring those areas, and also when they start getting in the spawn mode. You know, January you start seeing some fish, but February, March, April, it's really good in the sloughs. They are, who knows, they could be spawning there for all we know, but they do congregate in those areas. And a lot of times in those sloughs like that, you catch big fish, oversized. A lot of my, like I said, guys like to catch fish. If you want to catch a big one, you're going to go in there after the first of the year and have a shot at an oversized fish for sure. Yeah, but if you want numbers, you're going to fish the more open water, I think. But not to say you can't get numbers in the slough. It's just, you know, they do prefer the open water a little bit more for the bulk of the action. You'll catch plenty of fish in there, though, no problem. Any other questions?
If we don't have road, just the normal fisherman, I know going over here to Fisherman's Warehouse trying to buy some bait, what's your, or anywhere necessarily, like lamprey eel?
Lamprey eels, your
The ghost shrimp? What kind of shrimp?
ghost shrimp, you're not going to have it here, but if I had to pick one bait to go out and catch a sturgeon, would be a lamprey eel. One bait. Give me one bait, because it's going to fish year round. I'll catch some all year round. Granted, it's not going to be as productive certain times of the year, but I've had years where all I brought was lamprey eel. No salmon roe. And he caught plenty of fish. It's just, I think a sturgeon's an opportunistic feeder, and if you're in the zone where they're at, now granted, there's going to be some guys with some really good roe recipes, you know, and you're going to sit next to them, they're going to catch some fish, and you're not. You know, it's just what it is. Then it's going to be turned around, and you might have the lamprey eel on there using another bait. You'll still get some bites. You know, you don't need salmon roe. No. I got eel on at least 2 to 4 rods every day.
And if you're going to choose one shrimp, what would it be? Salmon,
Probably
ghost,
ghost shrimp.
Ghost.
If you can find it.
Right.
This time of year, they're going to get it once a week, maybe twice if you're lucky. But yeah, it's grass shrimp's good too. It's just so expensive.
That's what I've always caught them on, that's my favorite.
Grass shrimp works well. That's
But
what
that's
I like.
Rio Vista and
Hard to find.
north, up
Yeah.
in the Deepwater Channel and that.
See, but grass shrimp's also a freshwater shrimp too at times.
Yeah.
You know, ghost shrimp's going to be more of a salty
You ever
water.
caught anything on eel up there?
Really?
Always had.
Yeah. Try some night crawlers up in the river.
Done that.
You tried that in the river?
I've heard, well, I've tried the combos. I've heard they do the combos. They'll throw an
Eel
eel on
nightcrawler?
with a nightcrawler,
Yeah.
you know, or something like that.
Yeah, you got to put it on while it's still wiggling.
Yeah?
Like a little snake. Does anyone? I'm out of here. If anyone's got any questions, I got a long day. I've had a long week already.
You've got a card for your.
Yeah, Alan's got some. I'll go get some for you. Yeah, we're back out. I think we got one.